Hey guys, welcome into another edition of the College Football Prize Picks show. Our sponsor Prize Picks has amazing props to give out, ton of college football props. You can use code Awesomeo if you're a new user, and we will match up to $100 of your first deposit. Be sure to follow these picks that we're about to give you. And if you don't know what Prize Picks is, you can basically pick anywhere from 2 to 5 props. And if you hit guess over unders, if you hit them, you'll 2 extra money. If you get 4 out of 5, you'll 10 extra money. If you get 5 out of 5, huge, huge way to make money and an easy way to do it. Appreciate you guys being here. And Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm excited for this weekend's card. You and I were talking before the show. I feel like I have my fourth or fifth wedding to go to this weekend. So I'm going to miss some of these games, unfortunately, but still hitting the projections hard and looking forward to some of the outcomes, particularly this undefeated matchup in the Big Ten. Michigan versus Michigan State, already a rivalry, and now we have them both undefeated. Really excited to see who comes out of that.
Yeah, no, it's always a big weekend of college football, and obviously it's getting close to Halloween. Some of these upsets are coming about, which is why I'm wearing, the Halloween costume. I am Gordon from Dodgeball this upcoming weekend, which will be a little fun time. My buddy's dressing up as Dwight Gooden, another one, Peter LaFleur. Matt, I know wedding for Halloween is going to be a little bit different for you, but let's get into some of our picks here. I see Will Shipley. I know he's back, and I'm excited to see this running back. You like his over and rushing yards. Tell me about it.
Yeah, there's like 4 or 5 reasons I think you could look to the over here. First of all, it's pretty low, 52 and a half. But you have Kobe Pace out of this game. We already had some transfers, and like a Lynn J. Dixon's not with the program. They're having a ton of quarterback controversy right now. So Uiagalelei is a player we're going to talk about later, but he was benched in their most recent game. And I'm not sure if they're going to start Fomashan or not. They've been pretty quiet on what they're going to do with the starting quarterback. Either way, both of them have been very bad. With Fomashan, you have a guy that's not even completing 45% of his passes through his career. It's a small sample, but let's think about this. A lot of that's coming in garbage time anyway, because he was the third string behind Lawrence. He's now been the backup all year behind Uiagalelei. He's not exactly facing stiff competition when he's been on the field. He is a good dual threat, but either way, I think this Clemson team is going to ride the run, and they actually find themselves in a favorable matchup for the first time in weeks here. They're going to be playing Florida State, a run defense you're certainly not scared of, allowing over 160 yards per game. And we haven't even really talked about Shipley himself yet. He's coming off the injury, came back and looked good last week. And prior to the injury, we saw Clemson give him 20 carries. There should be volume in this game just because of a lack of bodies, passing game struggles, a solid matchup. And we've actually already seen Clemson do it. So this is my favorite one on the board.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you in that regard. Clemson is one of those teams that right now I can't figure out why they're so bad offensively. Their passing game is the reason why, and I think they're going to need to just commit to Will Shipley because he is their best player, that playmaker. From what I've seen this year, I know they can't get the ball to Ross at all, and it's just against Florida State. It's definitely a good matchup to have, but the next one that I have, which is another running back, is Rocco Griffin for Vanderbilt, over 52 and a half rushing yards. I've spoken about it plenty of times on these streams. Missouri's run defense is simply the worst in the country. They are giving up on average over 6 yards per carry this year. Rocco Griffin has been up and down with carries, but in their competitive games, he's seen upwards of 15 carries, and he's had 107 yards, 77 yards, 57 yards. North Texas was able to hang around this Missouri team. I think even though Vegas has spread a little in favor of Missouri, I think Rocco Griffin will be able to get there on the ground against this run defense. And honestly, I think this game's a little bit closer going into the later portion of the game, and then Missouri runs away with it. How are you thinking about this game? I know this isn't on the slate, but it's a game that it's favored in Missouri's or spot. But I think that Rocco Griffin's a great play for Vanderbilt.
Yeah, for sure. At this point, I think it's just a rinse and repeat. If you can find a solid number on a rusher who's seeing most of the carries facing Missouri, you just take it. And in this spot, you have the benefit of the number being really low. You mentioned North Texas. I mean, we can go all the way back to Central Michigan. Lou Nichols averaged 7.1 yards per carry against this Missouri defense, and Lou Nichols carried 19 times for 135 yards. I didn't run projections on this game, but I don't even really think I have to. Intuition would suggest that this is a pretty solid over.
Yeah, it's just again, I've said it multiple times this year. Missouri, any running back that gets a sub 60-yard prop against Missouri, I'll most likely be playing. If they're anywhere competent, then I'll be definitely taking a hold of it. But I know Prize Picks in recent weeks has added some quarterback rushing props, and I know that you like DJ Uiagalelei's under. Tell me about the pick because I completely love it. I'm not even sure he's going to really get the start this week.
I'm not sure he's going to get the start either. We just flat out don't know with him. And I think we can fall back on the assumption that it's going to be a timeshare. He's just played so poorly this year that they're going to start taking a look at the backup Fomashan. And they did last week. Not naming the starter this week, I think, suggests that it's going to be a timeshare at the very least. But Uiagalelei, I think, has done a lot of his rushing just through pure scrambles. In their last game against Pitt, he only had 4 designed runs. He's not typically a guy they're using as just a pure rusher. They will occasionally near the goal line short yardage because he's a big 6'4", 250-pound player. But even if he's seeing 100% of the snaps, a lot of them coming on scrambles. In a game where they're favored by nearly 10 points against Florida State, I think it's actually more design runs for Shipley, for Phil Maffa, and less the scrambling situations with Uiagalelei. And then you look at where his prop is, it's pretty close to his average. You break that down, it's very volatile on a week-to-week basis. He actually has only eclipsed 45 yards 4 times this year, and a lot of them coming in those scrambling situations against the better teams. Again, he's rushing a lot against Boston College, Pitt, Georgia Tech, the really close games. And then you look at the Georgias, some of the other contests they've played, not so much. So I think it's just a combination of factors. We already like Shipley. There could be a rotation at quarterback. Uiagalelei under the rushing prop in the 40s makes some sense here.
Yeah, and also with college football, for people unfamiliar, sacks are negative for college football, and Clemson's pass protection hasn't been the greatest this year against any opponent. And DJ Uiagalelei doesn't exactly tuck the ball and run like he should, because I've watched some of these games and he's had running lanes and he just chooses to stick in the pocket and wait for these throws to happen, take some pretty bad sacks. But moving on to one of the other quarterbacks on the slate that we have twice for props to pick. I love Caleb Williams over in rushing yards this week at 57 and a half. He's hit well over 57 rushing yards in every start this year and in that game against Texas. I think he's one of the premier quarterbacks in the country. And for Oklahoma to win games, they're going to be taking a lot more deep shots and running the ball. And to set those deep shots up, Caleb Williams is going to have to be active in the run game. The spread's at 19. He's a true freshman. I don't think he's going to really come out of the game early. I'm not really afraid of the game script in that regard. I know you talked about liking that over on as well. What do you have him at for your projections?
I'm pulling that up right now. I remember he projects well, but I saw something in the chat quick asking about the numbers for which one. They didn't specify, but I'll just recap what we did so far. Will Shipley is at 52 and a half. We like the over there. Rocco Griffin's actually at 52 and a half as well, where we like the over. And DJ Uiagalelei, I think I forgot to say his prop is 41 and a half, where I preferred the under. As far as Caleb Williams and his rushing numbers, he's coming in slightly above this for me, right around 60, which does give it value towards the over. And I think it's a little bit depressed just because of some of the play volume in this game. Both teams have been playing slowly, Oklahoma and Texas, but I don't think that is because of preference. I think Oklahoma's been struggling with some offensive efficiency issues. Again, we saw that against Kansas. We've seen it multiple times this year. Texas Tech has also struggled with efficiency. Now, Oklahoma has been very bad against the pass. I think it should help with play volume here. And then just as Caleb Williams gets more starts under his belt, again, this is going to be his 4th start of the season. He's not a guy that was taking first team reps at all in camp. We're talking about a true freshman thrown directly into the fire, working with the second team till this point, till the Texas game. So I think it's going to come together with him. He is a phenomenal athlete, one of the best dual threats in the country. Wouldn't be surprised to see him eclipse this whatsoever. I like over on all the Caleb Williams this week.
Yeah, I mean, I again, I agree with that. I think Caleb Williams is just one of those athletes in college football. It's going to be eventually be the face of it. He's just one of those dudes that 6'3", 6'4", big bodied, can run over people. And the play he made against Kansas to seal the win was phenomenal. but but moving along to one of the things we've got going on, Awesomeo Hall of Fame. It's one of the, if you get them in the top 5 of a contest of over 5K, send us a picture of your screenshot, tag us at Awesomeo HOV, and you could download the avatar for your Awesemo profile pic at awesemo.com/avatar. You tweet your wins at Awesomeo Hall of Fame, and you enter in a chance to win Awesemo Plus Platinum for the whole year. This year, I mean, this past week, we had Adam, one of the DFS guys, win over 100K in basketball. We had some of our other subscribers win top 5 finishes in football, NBA, MMA. There's a lot of winning going on in Awesemo right now, and I mean, even last week for me in a 20 entry max, I was able to come in first place for basketball as well. It's a phenomenal thing to be a part of, and hey, if you're winning Awesemo Plus Platinum for a month, it just gives you another reason to continue using the product. It's phenomenal. It's been a good time, and you get access to Matt's wonderful projections this weekend, which he doesn't exactly get to take full advantage of because he's going to a wedding.
Oh, I'm going to be playing. You better believe that I am going to be sneaking away to the bathroom or whatever I have to do to check these late swaps.
Yeah, so Matt's not a good wedding guest. Just be sure if you're a friend watching the show, don't just make sure your wedding's in springtime because that's when Matt can enjoy it the most. But make sure it's not in March Madness time because I know Matt's a huge college basketball guy. So there's like specific months and days that you can schedule your wedding to make sure it's comfortable for Matt.
Yeah, my goodness, if I ever get married someday, it better be some lucky woman. But you're absolutely right.
But let's move along to another Caleb Williams prop. You like his over in passing yards. What made you get to the 229 and a half over?
Yeah, I think he's just under projected as a whole. Like going back at looking at Oklahoma quarterbacks, going from Baker to Kyler to Jalen Hurts, the offensive scheme is just conducive to quarterback success, saying a lot about Rattler to start the year. And on a small sample, Caleb Williams has been ridiculously efficient. This guy's completing nearly 70% of his passes. And just like looking at yards per attempt, he's currently sitting at 10. A really tiny sample right now. But again, that's just elite play coming against some fairly good competition, excluding Kansas. I mean, he walked right into that Texas game, into the fire, and played fantastic. Just based on median projections here, he's well above that, a ceiling near 300, sitting at 293. I like the passing one slightly more than the rushing, but I'm buying all the Caleb Williams here against Texas Tech in a defense for Texas Tech. Let's not forget they lost their head coach this week.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the other big thing. It's a weird time for college football with Caleb Williams taking over for Spencer Rattler, who was a Heisman hopeful to begin the year. But with Lincoln Riley in this offense, they'll be able to dial up some of those deep shots like I was talking about earlier. I completely agree with you on his over in both of these props. I truly believe he will eventually be the face of college football under Lincoln Riley's control. And this upcoming year, they need it because right now I'm not sure who outside of these running backs are really taking that stride to be the next guy because we have a lot of these quarterbacks that are playing really well going to the draft. But moving on to the next college football prop of the day, I've got Casey Thompson, one of our favorites on the show. We've talked about him quite a bit this year. Over 218 passing yards against this Baylor defense. Baylor has not held a single quarterback in the Big 12 under 250 passing yards so far. And I think they're going to be getting more and more confidence going forward with Casey Thompson. The over under 61 and a half. Baylor has given up, last past weekend, Baylor gave up over 300 passing yards to BYU, which I think obviously BYU's pass offense is a little bit better than Texas. Sorry, my dog's barking real quick. But anyways, what do you think about this one for Casey Thompson, Matt?
Yeah, you take care of your dog. I'll talk about Thompson for a little bit because this is one I really like too. And I think there's a lot to unpack here with Thompson. One, generally in games with higher totals, you're going to see a lot of passing output. Baylor hasn't played a fantastic slate of games to this point. Their schedule is fairly easy to start the year, and then they've played much closer competition inside the Big 12. And Texas is actually an underdog in this spot. They've been trying to ride the run in recent weeks with Bijan Robinson and making that quarterback transition midseason, but coming in as slight underdogs here, that should favor the pass a little bit more than we've seen in recent weeks. And with Casey Thompson specifically, it comes down to volume for him. If he sees the volume, he's been very efficient as a passer. He's completing nearly 65% of his passes. 9.5 yards per attempt is fantastic. And I think a lot of that falls on their freshman, Xavier Worthy, who's just been fantastic. And I don't think Baylor has the bodies to guard him. So it comes down to game script. If this game plays out the way Vegas and bookmakers are projecting it to, with Baylor being a slight favorite and Texas having to pass more, he should slide right over this. He's pretty comfortably above it for me. I have him around like 235. So you're getting pretty decent amount of value on this prop.
Yeah, no, I think Casey's a wonderful play. And to pair him, because you can pair in prize picks, it doesn't limit you to just one player. As long as you're playing at least two players from two different teams, you have Xavier Worthy, who has really come on this year. He's a true freshman, and he's been phenomenal. In the last 3 games, he's seen 14 targets, 4 targets, and 9 targets. He's a premier player on this passing attack. And with no Jordan Whittington, I expect his role to just continue upwards. I love his over of 72.5 receiving yards to pair with Thompson. He's been top dog for target share. In the game that he had only 4 targets, he was still 36% of the targets in that one. How are you feeling about Worthy's prop?
Yeah, I just checked the projection on this. He's at 83 yards for me. So a really solid over on this. And it comes down to when you're projecting Worthy, you have to take into account the role change. His target share from early in the year is much different from what we're seeing now. Jordan Whittington was the wide receiver 1 for the first 4 or 5 weeks of the year till Worthy emerged. And then the injury is only going to boost his target share moving forward. They have Joshua Moore, who's really disappointed in the wide receiver 2 role. And they're not using a consistent wide receiver 3. It's Marcus Washington. It's Kelvonte Dixon a little bit. There's just not a lot of other options. And Casey Thompson's locked onto Worthy. It's been beneficial to them both. And I don't think Baylor has the dudes to keep up with it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, Robney and the other receiver for BYU both went over 70 yards against them. I know this offense isn't exactly the caliber of BYU's passing attack, but I still believe in Worthy's talent to just catch a big one. He's one of those players in college football that at any given point can catch the 50, 40-yard touchdown. And he's going to get plenty of chances in that one. But let's move on to the one of the last few picks we have. You like Zamir White over in 67.5 rushing yards. Tell me about it and why you love it.
So it comes down to you. Georgia is a 14-point favorite over Florida. It's typically a 4-man backfield here, but Kendall Milton's out. And I just want to, I don't want to forget this because it's very, very important. Taking out Kendall Milton, I believe second on the team in carries. It's a huge absence here. And you reduce a 4-man committee down to a 3-man committee. From there, this is a semi-competitive game for Georgia, and they've just been absolutely blowing out opponents. So we're talking about like South Carolina, Vanderbilt. They blew out Arkansas, Auburn. And in these games that are semi-competitive, we'll have to call them that because they haven't really played many close ones. They will use Zamir White more. Like when they played Arkansas, Zamir White's carry spiked to 16. When they played Auburn, they spiked to 18. Even Clemson, he had 13 carries for 74 yards. And that doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a very efficient Georgia rushing attack. And now we're removing a key piece of that, reducing it from 4 to 3. This projection that PrizePicks has right now is accounting for the 4th back in the system. When you remove that, Zamir White projects a bit better than this. So it's an over I like. I will admit it is volatile because if Georgia gets up in this game, it very well could be 3-way committee split right down the middle. But if it's somewhat competitive, Zamir White should see his carry spike as we've seen earlier this year.
Yeah, no, I mean, Zamir White was one of the Georgia running backs that was supposed to end up being the next great thing and just hasn't had the opportunity to be. Against Florida, I could see them riding heavy on him and Cook in this one. Florida's run defense isn't exactly too great. I'm interested. I mean, you saw the LSU rushing attack just absolutely dismantle them in their last game. But anyways, before we get going, if you guys haven't already, definitely download PrizePicks. Use code Awesomeo. We'll match up to $100 of your first deposit. And be sure to subscribe and like to this show. And coming up next, we have 2 fantastic shows. We have NBA Deeper Dive, 5 p.m. with Lavi and Adam, and then NBA Live Before Lock, 6 p.m. with Eric and Greg. And if you guys didn't know, Matt is a Bears fan, and on live show this week, a player was on with them, and he said the notable player for the Bears Super Bowl run was Devin Hester. Matt, do you want to own up to that one?
No, I don't have anything to say about that. I said the first guy that came to my head, and unfortunately, it was not the Bears player who was on the very show with me. And I thought about Devin Hester watching that opening kickoff when I was in fifth grade. But I know we got to head out here quick. But there's a few other ones I want to give the people quickly before we leave that really stuck out to me in terms of projection. Not as much narrative behind them as the ones we've talked about. But Aiden O'Connell for Purdue, he's sitting at 234 and a half passing yards. Purdue is the heaviest pass team in the Big Ten West, and they're extremely up tempo. They get some tough matchups down the stretch here, but raw volume should get him there. This is kind of like a Will Rogers bet that you and I were hitting early in the year. There's just so much raw play volume for Purdue that even if he's inefficient, the overall attempt should backdoor him above 234 passing yards. Another one is Jayshon Corbin for Florida State, under 78 and a half rushing yards. They made a quarterback change midway through the year, moving back to Jordan Travis, benching Mackenzie Milton. Jordan Travis is such a key part of this rushing attack that it siphons off a lot of attempts from Corbin. Not to mention they have Trayshawn Ward and Lawrence Tawafali already in a three-way timeshare. Corbin's going to lead it, but a lot of the rushing attempts going to Jordan Travis now really hurt him. I also like the over in Adrian Martinez. He's just set too low for Nebraska in a competitive game. But those are three other ones I just want to hit on before we head out.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, again, we have some of the better prize picks of the week. I mean, if you guys haven't, just know I've been sending a little bit of them in the chat that you guys can make sure you get in, because these will change. These picks will change. And remember, you can pick anywhere from 2 to 5 people. But again, guys, I appreciate you tuning in. Subscribe, like to the shows. Be sure to tune into the other ones, and have a good one. And have a blessed Halloween.